Hoskin. We're here at DublinSouthFM.ie. We're also, you can find me on MelanieHoskin.ie if you want to know about what I do or you want to listen to some of the podcasts. Last week we were talking about narcissistic behaviour. Christine Louis de Canonville is with us again. She's the author of the book. What's the name of the book?
The Three Faces of Evil.
That's the one. And we were talking about narcissistic behaviour, and we're continuing with part 2 of that last week's show. You're very welcome back.
Thank you very much.
You actually didn't go anywhere. Let's be honest. But we were talking earlier about the 9 characteristics in terms of diagnosis of a narcissist.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Would you like to go over those characteristics again?
Yes. Well, what I'm looking at is if you're suspecting that maybe you are trying to deal with a narcissist, either at home or in the workplace or in a friendship, that you might be able to identify some of the behaviours that'll help you to know that, because it's these 9 criteria that chip away at the person's whole sense of self, and that's what happens to the victim.
Okay.
So I was looking at grandiosity and how the narcissist exaggerates all of their achievements and their talents, and they believe that they are more special than anybody else, and how that drives the other 8 characteristics, really. So they want power and control, and they're preoccupied with the fantasy of success and power. They want to be seen as number one. They consider themselves to be special, and that they can only be understood by special people. So they actually have a God complex. So they're going to be much more special than you are if you're their victim, and much more intelligent than you and know more than you. And that they require excessive attention and admiration, and that's why they need narcissistic supply. And narcissistic supply is a name given to anybody that actually becomes their victim, or anything that makes them actually stand out better from the crowd. So that's where we got to. So maybe I'll continue on now with the other criteria.
Just before you go ahead there, so that group would be their supporters or their endorsers or their cheerleaders, so to speak. Okay.
Yes.
And they surround themselves with a bevy of people who believe in them.
Yeah, if you think of a narcissist as being fairly much like a drug addict, their drug may not be opiates, but their drug is narcissistic supply.
Okay.
Victims, basically.
So they will be able to determine what personality type creates a victim.
Yes. Yes.
And who to stay away from, who just won't buy it.
Oh, yeah, they're quite clever. I mean, not everybody falls for them. Not everybody they would be interested in as being a victim. So in a kind of a way, if you like, it's a kind of a backhanded compliment if they pick you as one of their supply. For instance, they're very, very attracted to what is termed as empaths. Empaths, in case you don't know, are people who are very compassionate, people who are quite humble. They don't need to have the centre of attention all of the time. They are very giving, very caring. And narcissists crave that because that was something that probably they didn't get enough of in childhood.
And empaths kind of believe in people. They believe in the good of people, and the people are good.
They do. They do. And sometimes naively, they believe in good, and they don't see very bad behaviour as evil. They see it as maybe a lack of the good, which is a different thing altogether. Yeah. And so they're also willing to put people up and see the best in them and see their gifts and their talents and reflect that back to them. So that's why they actually are targeted. In a way, the narcissist craves that kind of attention.
So a narcissist will, build rapport with allies or friends, and kind of build them up that little bit as well in terms of creating some sort of reliance?
In the beginning. In the beginning of the relation, in the first stage of the relationship, yes.
And what happens if a narcissist meets somebody who, an empath who is a realist as well and can see through the cracks? What kind of respond and the kind of tell a narcissist where to go? I'm kind of getting you.
Well, as soon as you start to challenge that, and in the relationship at some stage, if it's a true relationship, you do start to challenge things like that. That's when the narcissist will turn.
Okay.
Up to then, it's a match made in heaven. You'll love them as a friend. You'll love them as a partner. You'll love them as a romantic relationship. But once they turn, they actually go into a series of devaluing you then at that stage. And that's all part of gaslighting.
There's an old saying, and it says, how do you get rid of a narcissist? And the answer is you tell them they're a narcissist.
Well, it depends. Some narcissists will take that as quite a compliment. Because what they will hear is they're saying that they're special, and that they're, the fact that, they're probably good looking and they're vain, and that's no problem to them, that they can accept that all right. So they're probably going to see that as a compliment anyway and even agree with you. But they're certainly not going to be looking at what we're looking at, because narcissists are not, they will not become introspective.
Okay.
They will not actually go and look at, you point out a negative quality in them. That to them is now rejecting them and abandoning them.
Okay.
And so they're going to be, they're going to punish you for that.
And they're not going to reflect on it. They're
not going to
reflect.
They're going to punish you for that in some way or other.
Okay. So note to listeners out there.
Yes.
Don't call a narcissist a narcissist.
No. And don't ask them to go and look it up and read and let's research it. Because all you're really doing is you're giving them more information to be able to bat you off and gaslight you further. Yeah. And of course they project everything onto you. Like, for instance, if they are having an affair, for instance, they will accuse you of having an affair. Or if they are lying to you, they accuse you of being the liar. And people get very, very confused about all of that. Yeah. But they project, you see, this is the thing, that they don't live out of a true self. They live out of a false self. So anything that they don't like about themselves has to be cast off. And it'll be cast off in your direction. Because they're not willing to look at it. Yeah. They're not interested in making changes.
Yeah. So there's no personal development plan for them in their mind.
No, not really.
Okay. Right, moving on to those characteristics again.
Okay, so another characteristic is their sense of entitlement. And of course this is a sign of their superiority. They think that they're entitled. Anything that you have, they're entitled to. So, for instance, if you give you an example of someone that I worked with who had their own business, and their narcissistic partner thought that they were entitled to actually have 50% of that business.
Okay.
And was doing absolutely everything to get their way. Absolutely everything. Manipulating them in every single way. But the danger would be if you gave them then that, if that particular narcissist did get 50% of the business, they would be then they'd be spending the money, they'd be able to make decisions, they'd have the power and control that we were talking about earlier. Yeah. Their grandiosity would make them, in this case, this person was not the CEO of the company, but whenever they went out on business meetings, everybody thought that he was the CEO and not actually the female who was the owner.
Okay.
And he would take her ideas and he would throw them on the table before she had a chance to set it up that she was offering something as an idea. He would hijack it, and he would be seen as actually the leader and the go-to person.
Yeah.
So imagine now if he actually got 50, if he actually legally had 50% of her business, he would be making the decisions. He would be certainly spending the money as it was coming in.
Yeah. And would have the potential to destroy a business as well. By leading it incorrectly.
Absolutely.
Because he's living off the title.
Absolutely.
Rather than the experience, perhaps.
Yes, absolutely. Like I had another client who actually did something very similar to that. That, again, they were in a business situation, and when the wife went out on maternity leave, he got full control. And when she came back, now she was still keeping her hand in while she was on her leave, but she wasn't around. When she eventually did come back, the three major contracts that she had that were really funding her whole business all left her. They didn't renew their contract. And when she went privately to talk to them to see why, it was they wouldn't deal with him, that they had found him unreliable and too up in the clouds. But she didn't manage to get those contracts back. So, in fact, her business almost did go bankrupt.
And there goes the trust. The trust would have been there.
Absolutely.
In him. So they obviously develop a huge amount of trust from their partners or their friends or their...
Yeah, but then their grandiosity, they don't even, they go off in a tangent that you don't even think they'll go off on. They think that they're God and that they can't do anything wrong and that they're the best ever and that they're more superior, that the rules don't apply to them. That, the rules, they make rules for everybody else, but those rules do not apply to them. Now you can be, if you're listening to this, questioning this in your relationship. Is this what's going on in your relationship? Any of these behaviours?
Yeah. Is there a different type? Like, I mean, when you talk about people taking over businesses, I see a very arrogant, confident-looking person walking straight. Talking the talk, so to speak. Is there a flip side to that? Are there narcissists who are passive and very sneaky and have different goals? The goals would be more to control somebody.
Well, this is all about control. When we're talking about narcissistic personality disorder, we are talking about people who want control and power. And they will do anything they can in order to get that. And so these behaviours, although I'm naming them individually, they actually don't stand alone. They all are all kind of interlinked and intertwined. So they are getting that control by being grandiose, by appearing to be the one that is so confident and knows everything that they're doing. And they're really, really good at acting.
Yeah.
Because they do really believe all this themselves. They believe their own lies.
Yeah.
Now, if you're standing there barefaced lying to someone and you truly believe your own lies, you're going to sound very real.
Yeah. So
very believable.
Absolutely.
Where the majority of us, when we tell lies, we feel a bit guilty. We're wondering... will we be discovered?
And we know we're doing something wrong.
And we know we're doing something
and
wrong.
we're holding ourselves to account for it, really.
Yeah. And we'll feel guilty later.
Yeah. Okay.
And we might even blush, but they won't. They won't.
They won't because they believe in the lie or because they're trying to convince you? Or a bit of both? Okay.
Both.
Okay. All right, moving on.
Okay, moving on. Lack of empathy.
Okay.
They actually disregard the feelings of everybody.
Yeah.
So they're not really interested in your point of view. You try to appeal to them. Yeah, but don't you know that hurts me, offends me when you say that to me? They don't care. They're only caring about winning. That's all they care about, really. So they're not going to put themselves in your shoes. They're not going to wonder later, that must have really hurt, and go back and apologise. They're never wrong. They never apologise. If they do apologise, there's an ulterior motive behind it. Maybe they're manipulating you. They realise that you've pulled away from them. And so maybe they might offer you. But it's actually manipulation, because actually they don't really apologise.
There's an objective to the
absolutely.
To the apology.
So they're not going to understand, when you're talking about, you never let me make a decision, or, I don't have any money of my own. Everything has to go through you, because they're controlling everything. They don't care. They're not really interested. You're not really going to get very far with them. They're exploitative. So here's another criteria. They'll take advantage of anything for personal gain. I was listening to a program, another radio program some time back, and there was a lady in her 70s, and she was talking about she'd met this man. And I mean, he was absolutely pathological narcissist, probably psychopath, probably. And he had got all of her confidence, and he made her feel very, very good about herself and all the rest of it. But he had actually discovered that she had recently sold a house, so she had in around 200,000. So he was actually planning to get that money. And so he exploited her in every way that he could. But he took this was on radio, this was somebody speaking in Ireland. I think he got 180,000. I think that's what she had. He took it all. He didn't, knowing she was in her 70s, she was not going to have any more earning power, probably.
Yeah.
He didn't leave her with 20,000 to live on. He cleaned her out. And then suddenly, of course, he came up with a plan. I think his plan was he was selling his business, and in the meantime, he needed to put some money off. He was selling a business for millions, but he needed some money to do something else. And in the meantime, she loaned it to him, which she did. And
so that would have all seemed very plausible
absolutely.
At the time.
Absolutely.
Somebody that obviously she loved and trusted.
And you thought that you had a true relationship with.
Yeah, so for the good of the future. Yeah, okay.
But the exploitation is that he wiped her out completely. He left her nothing. So that's how ruthless they are.
Okay. And a narcissist could walk away from that guilt-free.
Absolutely guilt-free. They actually would be thinking, if you're so gullible and so stupid, you deserve it.
Okay. Harsh.
So you see no empathy at all.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah. Would that come up in arguments, or in, where somebody is, we can all be cruel in arguments or debates we're having with friends or partners, and then we feel bad about that, and we kind of, rehash it up and kind of apologise or say, look, I shouldn't have said that. We feel bad about it ourselves. Yes. None of that would happen with a narcissist.
No, I mean, if you do confront them, they might sort of say, well, it was the truth. What I said was the truth. So they will use the truth as a weapon. There might be an element in truth in what they're saying. There could well be an element of truth in what they're saying. But they will use that truth as a weapon against you.
And these comments or these things that they would say, they wouldn't be the kind of thing that somebody who loves somebody would say to them, or certainly wouldn't retract or apologise for. They then label it, well, it's the truth, creating even more damage.
Yes. And what they also do is they very often, they will isolate you if you're the victim. They will isolate you from friends and family. So that's something you might look at if you're a listener and you're wondering. You might find that your friends and your family are not coming around so much. It could be that he's making them feel unwelcome. He might well be talking, or he or she. They might be telling you when somebody has come to visit, they'll run them down. They'll badmouth them. And that hurts you. It offends you because you might love these people. And then you get to find that every time that person comes to visit, you end up in a row with your partner. So it's not worth it. So they don't come to visit so often. Another way they can drop off as well is, especially family members. Sometimes your family can see it. They can see the changes in you. They can see that you're being controlled. They don't have a name for it. So when they try to tell you, get away, get out of that relationship, it's not doing you good. And you might defend this narcissist because you don't see it, you don't understand it, you don't see what they see because you're so close, you're so enmeshed in it, you can't see it. But then very often the family then will say, I can't be bothered. She keeps defending him, told her what to do, but she won't do it. So don't tell me anymore. I'm sick of it. Don't tell me.
And can they say things like they don't like your family, or your family makes them feel a certain way, to kind of cause an isolate or a separation there? They
might say it. They might even go so far as to say, I don't want them here when I'm here.
Or I don't want to go visit with you.
I don't want to go visit.
Okay.
And when they do go visit, they will pout and they will sulk and be awkward and make it all very, very difficult. What they're trying to do is to isolate you.
And would your family see that, or would you just pick up on this? Can this be subtle?
Very often, family do see it, and they try to reflect that back to their loved one. But the loved one isn't seeing it for themselves because they've been so gaslighted. They have been so confused. Your narcissist will come up with good, when you challenge things, they come up with good rational reasons as to why they've said something or done something. So you get that you're very muddled, very confused.
Okay.
You have the love of your family, but you have the love of this person too.
Yeah.
And as far as you're concerned, as the victim is concerned, sometimes they actually think that their family are just being mean and they just don't like them, and that's why they're behaving that way. But actually, when we lose close friends and family, we've nobody to do a reality check with. We're then submerged in this behaviour all of the time, and we've no one to check it against. So then we become even more lost.
Yeah.
More and more. The funny thing about it is, the more a person is gaslighted, and I'd like to say a little bit about that really. The more they are gaslighted, the more they lose of themselves, and the more confused they become. And what happens is they go into a space where they actually regress. And they become almost childlike. The victim becomes almost childlike. And the very person that's hurting them, they actually hold on to and hang on to. And they become more and more dependent on.
Yeah. Okay, Louis de Canonville about narcissistic behaviour. Just before the break there, we were talking about gaslighting and how that makes people feel, and how people can kind of go back into the arms of the person that is manipulating them, and create a dependency has been created, which brings them even closer to what is tearing them apart.
Yes, absolutely. So what we're looking at really is the behaviour of gaslighting. What it does is it creates an atmosphere of fear and also intimidation. Because if you're being controlled and you're being, there's no empathy and there's excessive abuse going on, which it is, it creates an instability and an unpredictability in your life. So you actually get lost, you don't know where you are. The coercive control that I mentioned as well, that's where the narcissist takes away your liberty and your freedom. So that you become isolated. So that's one thing that will happen to you. There's mind games going on all of the time in the gaslighting behaviour. And you're micromanaged.
Okay.
You have to account for everything you do. Every money that you spent. Every visitor, why you're meeting that friend. Why do you want to? Am I not enough for you? So all of that is going on. So basically the victim is becoming a hostage.
Yeah.
And that's where they end up as if they're walking on eggshells. They're afraid to say anything. They're afraid of, when you upset a narcissist, they go into a rage. And the rage could be genuine in the sense that you've touched their vulnerability, but it's also a great way of controlling. Because very often the victim is afraid of the rage.
And can there be a precursor to that rage, like silence? Or you might think, oh, something's coming now, or the rage is coming, or I know what this person is capable of.
It could be that just the rage comes. Or it could be that silence comes, but that's another form of abuse. Yeah. That's bullying.
Absolutely.
And so very often, you see, we all have memory of being rejected as children. And we don't care for rejection, any of us. So when the narcissist behaves in these ways, they make us feel rejected as well. If you're met with silence, and the silence might go on for 6 weeks or any amount of time, and you're doing everything to bring it back around, to repair it.
I kind of think, somebody being in this situation, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, run for your life. But they're not thinking the way maybe they would normally think. They have slowly, systematically been broken down.
Absolutely.
So they won't think the way, one might say, well, why doesn't she just leave him? Or why doesn't he just get away from her? Yeah. But it's not that easy.
No, it's not that easy because they can't see what's going on, for a start. They think that the person that they're with loves them. Or their best friend or whatever it is. There's also circumstances like, very often, whether it's male or female, they will control the funding. They will control the money. Sometimes you can't get out because there's children.
Okay. Never actually thought about that.
Yeah. And so sometimes why the victim will stay is they think the children love this parent as well. I can't leave and take that parent away from them. Or they haven't got the means to get out and find another home to bring their children to and supply the children with the same standard of living.
And what impact does this have on children now that you mention it? Whether the parent be father or mother?
Well, they've grown up, they're probably seeing this and growing up with this, and so they think this is normal behaviour.
Okay.
They don't know until they go to visit their friends and they see other families relating differently. They often don't even know. They know that mum or dad can go into rages, and so what they try to do is they really dance to the tune of the narcissist to try and keep on the right side of them. And children can learn that very, very young, whether it's a parent or in my case, it was a sibling. I danced around my brother to keep the peace.
So you create coping mechanisms or strategies.
Yes.
That will keep
defense
you,
mechanisms that keep you safe and alive. Literally alive in our case later on. And they're great strategies. So for example, my defense mechanism was pleasing behaviour. So I became everybody's little helper, everybody's friend, very likeable, and some of those were genuine. They were genuinely my personality. But a lot of them was, I also had to be responsible for my brother's behaviour, because when he did lose it, it was always my fault. See, they project everything back to you. So I should have known better. I shouldn't have said that. or I shouldn't have done that. So it was my fault anyway. And so I learned to comply. I learned to second guess everything. I learned to read his body language. I used to know when his mood was beginning to change. And then I would give him everything.
That's what I meant about the precursor, like, you know, something leading up, a change in atmosphere, the energy of an atmosphere, or, you know, that people would pick up on, you know, especially people close to, I suppose wouldn't they be maybe even unconsciously recognising a pattern?
Well, I think, they would. But I think if you have come from a past where you dealt with a narcissist, especially in your childhood, you're already conditioned.
Yeah.
And you learn to dance the dance with the next. Narcissists are very, very attracted to people who have already been victims. They can spot them. They can spot their tolerance. Because you learn, you know, if you're a child, you are stuck in a situation for many, many years. You have no way of getting out. And so you learn coping strategies that actually help your survival and help you to cope. But those same strategies that helped you in childhood can now act against you in adulthood. Okay. So the pleasing attention that I did, or the passivity, I was very passive. I didn't need to be in the limelight. I would, you know, let you be in the limelight. So I did that with my friends as well. So friends liked me because I wasn't really very challenging. I wasn't going to have to win the game. Yeah. Because I learned sometimes that it was dangerous to win the game. Yeah. And there were times when I did challenge my brother. But there was always a penalty to pay.
So you never really won.
So I learned actually not to.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But then I brought those same behaviours out into my adult life, and I didn't even know that I did that. I had no idea.
And by default, you were attracting narcissists.
Yeah. In a way, I was. Because I was soft. I could be a bit shy in my way. I was quite happy to let them be the centre of attention. I would tell them how great they are when I actually did think that, you know, that was that's fantastic that you did that. You must be very proud of yourself. Of course, so I was stroking the ego without even knowing that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was well primed and I was dancing the dance.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I think you've got an idea now what gaslighting is, and it really erodes us anyway. Yeah. Now there's two more criteria to go through. So, envious. Narcissists are very, very envious of anything another person has. And that's really important because if you have something that they want, if they target you, they might actually see you in the beginning as being superior. Because maybe it could be, I'm not necessarily talking about things, I'm talking about they may feel that you are moving in the right circle of friends and they want to break into that circle. Okay. That maybe in some way you can bring something to them. And they will exploit that. But after a little while, at first you'll be superior in their mind and they'll treat you well at that point because they're trying to hook you. But once they hook you, the very, very thing that they liked about you, they start to hate about you. And then they will envy you if you're brighter than them, if you're better looking than them, if you're liked. And they're attracted to people that are liked.
But they resent it.
But then they'll resent it because what it does is anything that another person possesses that they don't have in their own eyes, now maybe not in the victim's eyes, but in their own eyes, it triggers their shame. Shame is a huge one for a narcissist. So if they're lacking in any way in their own eyes, then that triggers their shame. And then if they think you've shamed them, and if you shame them, then they're going to have to bring you down in some way or other.
Okay.
So, and then they also think that one of their defense mechanisms is that they think that other people are envious of them. So, for instance, if you challenge them, their answer to that, oh yeah, you're just jealous of me. You're just envious of me. And that's why you're being horrible. So it's a great defense for them to think that you're envious of them as well. But they will envy any success you have, they will envy, and they will try to bring you down. And in bringing you down, they put themselves up. So that's the way it works.
So they can be very manipulative. They can lie about you.
Yeah.
They can be very malicious about you.
Yes.
They can be very convincing about lies about you.
Absolutely. Yes.
That might be a lot more common than we think. We may have a lot more narcissists around than we think.
They're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere, and most don't get diagnosed.
Do they put themselves in positions of power in terms of running groups or, not being challenged, being at the helm of something where they can't be challenged?
They will always try to get to the top of whatever it is that they're doing. So that's why in the workplace, if, for instance, you happen to have a slightly higher position than they have, and I'm talking at any level. Now, I'm not talking always at the high levels at all. It could be anyone. You're in the typing pool, or you're in the office, and you're a threat in some way to them, or they fancy your job. They want your job. They will then single you out. You'll be a target. So
how would that play out? Would they isolate you if they could, or how would that work out? How would they implement that?
What they would try to do is they would discredit you to other people.
Right.
Like, for instance, in one situation I was in the corporate world, the manager had been ill and took some time out, and I would say the subclinical psychopath, which is quite high end, she actually did step into the chair and did that job for several months. And she was good at it. She was great.
Yeah. She
did a great job of it. But when the boss came back, she actually didn't think that her manager was ever going to come back. She thought she wasn't well enough to come back, but actually she did come back. So she had pictured herself in this position. So now she set out to get rid of this manager. And one of the ways that she did it, women act differently to males, by the way.
Yeah.
They have all of the same 9 criteria that I've been going over. They have all of that. But they will operate slightly differently. The male will be much more aggressive. He will roar and shout, and he'll call you out, and he'll act badly. And he doesn't care that other people are seeing that.
Yeah.
But the female will be much more discreet. And it's harder then to actually see it and understand it. So this female, what she did was, she actually, what they do is they erode relationships. The men don't seem to do that I've seen. But the women attack relationships. So what she did was, she went to other people in the office and said, quite quietly to them, one by one, not in a group, one by one, she would tell half a truth and then embellish it.
Okay.
So she'd say...
Plant the seed and then
yes,
build on it,
to
make it credible.
She's not really well still. I know she's come back too soon. She's not really well.
Yeah.
She's making an awful lot of mistakes, and I'm covering her mistakes from her. I'm so worried about her. Now, what that does is it puts other people wise to watching. And we all actually do make mistakes from time to time. And so, but when you're being watched for mistakes, they'll be seen much quicker.
Yeah, yeah.
So she's discrediting bit by bit. Now, what they also do, the females, is, so supposing you and I are in an office with this narcissist who is discrediting somebody else, they'll tell you one story, and then they'll come to me and they'll tell me part of the story they've told you, but it'll be different. So then you and I meet at lunchtime and I say to you, did you hear about the boss? Isn't it an awful shame? And you assume, yes, Mary was telling me that. We assume that we've heard the same story, but actually we haven't got the same story at all. So even you and I are not relating properly. We're talking about two different things, but we don't know it.
Yeah.
So you might have been told about the illness, but I might have been told that actually the boss, actually her relationship with her husband or spouse is breaking up, and there's a lover involved. I have a different story, but I don't know I have a different story to you. So we're not even actually on the same page either.
Yeah.
So they erode the relationships down. That the women do that. So they attack and they get other people turning against you. But you now, as a victim, you can feel something is happening.
Yeah.
But you don't know what that something
Can't put
is.
your finger on it. Yeah.
Because people are being nice to you, but at the same time, there's something changed in the relationships. And it's very clever, very, very clever behaviour.
Very manipulative too.
Yeah.
Look, we're just going to go into a break and some music, and we will continue on with this then, because we've got another one there,
to
haven't
go.
we? Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll continue on with that after the break. So
Okay.
back in a few minutes. Thanks very much. Life Talk Live with Melanie Hoskin. You're here on Dublin South FM, and we're talking about narcissistic behaviours with Christine Louis de Canonville. Very welcome back.
Thank you.
We were talking there before about women narcissists and how they will manipulate, how they will, I suppose, isolate people, systematically isolate them by kind of acting like a cog in a wheel, where the spokes don't actually really know what's going on between each other, but the cog always does because it's interconnected with them. Is that kind of the way they'd operate? Keep everybody a little bit separate? And
yes, because it's kind of stereotypical behaviour of a woman that they can't, they can't be seen to be so aggressive, and so they try to manipulate it in a way where they coming across as being caring and understanding.
yeah,
Because women are meant to be caring and understanding and
that's
nurturing.
hard to see through.
Very,
That would be
very hard.
very difficult to see
Very
through.
hard. Much harder to see through than somebody who's screaming and shouting at
Yeah,
you.
so you could, and usually the person that's trying to convince someone else, she's a narcissist, like she's lying or she's doing this,
Yes.
and they're kind of going, you're the one that's making the most noise.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And getting and destroying the relationships of others around you systematically. So it's very clever.
Yeah.
Very, very clever behaviour.
Okay, and
So
the last one?
The last one is arrogance. Haughty and arrogant. So you'll be aware of, let's take Donald Trump as an example. I'm not saying that he is narcissistic, but everybody else is identifying that he certainly is showing those behaviours. And how arrogant he is that he stands up there and believes all that he's saying himself, and believes that he's much superior to, certainly in his fight against Hillary Clinton, the dirty tactics that he used to bring her down, while at the same time talking about how special he was. And that's the arrogance. And I believe that that's all of these are driven by the grandiosity, that they believe that they are so great. So that's the 9.
Okay.
And
What's the difference? Like, I know you say there's different forms. What's the difference, say, between, like there are covert and there are overt. What's the difference between those narcissistic types?
I'll give you a ladybird version of that. Most people would relate more so to the overt narcissists. They're the ones that have to be successful. They have to be better dressed, look better, have the better car, have the house in the right area, whatever it is. So they
Very
are
competitive.
very, very competitive, are out there trying to climb that ladder of success and power. And most people would kind of know about that one more so.
Yeah.
The covert narcissist are very, very different. They are very vulnerable. They are shy. They are not usually very successful. Now, my brother would have fitted into this category. They generally don't go out into the world and do very much. But what they do is they make their home their kingdom.
Okay.
All narcissists will turn situations into a cult-like situation where they are dominating. So in the home, the covert narcissist will rule supreme.
Okay.
Everybody will serve them. They are king or queen, and they have to be served by everybody, the children, everybody.
Is that kind of like a House Devil Street Angel type, or would it be very
not
different?
not so much. It's more that they're not actually very, very powerful.
Okay.
And they kind of know it. They're quite shame prone. They're both shame prone, but these are particularly shame prone because they don't actually get out there and function terribly well in the outside world. So they dominate they make their own kingdom within their family, and then they run everything from there. And they will be serviced from there. And their children and their spouses and their siblings will become their narcissistic supply.
And do they recognise this? Are they miserable? Or is their family miserable? Or do you know?
They'll often show signs of depression,
right, or vulnerability
and
of some
vulnerability.
Sort.
Where
So
the overt, you won't see that.
So they dance attendance on the covert because they take on the persona maybe of a victim, or
they can take on the victim role quite a lot.
And people react to that, but
yes.
they don't know that they're actually being controlled.
Yes. And of course the spouses of the covert narcissist will mind them. They'll see them as shy. They might excuse they had a terrible childhood. This is why they're like that, and they need to be protected. They need to be minded, and so they're minding them. They're minding them from their own family. Who's trying to warn them. You're being controlled in that relationship. You need to get out. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
But they'll get isolated, and they'll end up. In my brother's case, he had 9 children. But they didn't go to school. He didn't want them to go to school.
Okay.
Now, he did homeschool them.
Yeah.
And they're fantastic kids, I have to say, all of them. But they all had to look after him. His partner went out to work. She brought in the money. She but of course handed that all up. He decided how that money was spent. And so they were all isolated. So the children didn't go out and play outside. He reckoned that there was enough of them to have a friend within the family. But by keeping them from playing outside or going outside, he had more control over them. There was no place for a reality check of what was going on.
Okay. So we've discussed an awful lot here. I did want to get into narcissistic victim syndrome. I don't think we're going to have enough time, but I would like to direct people to find out more information.
Yes.
But in the last couple of minutes here, what I'd really like to do is a kind of spot the narcissist thing, how we might warn people, or empower people to see through a narcissist, because I think that might be the key. Once you spot it early enough, you can get out.
Absolutely.
So what are the kind of things because we do meet people and they're lovely and they're like us, and that's what attracts us to them. You feel like you have a kindred spirit going on.
Yes.
Where is the turning point in this where you should kind of say to yourself, right, I could be dealing with a narcissist.
Okay. Well, I suppose the best advice I could give to anybody listening is information. I'm giving you some information. I invite you to go get on the internet, look in more detail at these 9 criteria.
Right.
See, do any of them apply in your situation, whether it's work, home, friendship, whatever it is. See, does any of it apply? Without the information, you can do nothing. And I'm taking it slightly away from domestic abuse. Although a lot of what you'll read on domestic abuse will tie in with exactly what I'm actually saying. So information is key.
Yeah.
Absolutely is key. Once you understand the 9 things to look for in anybody, in any relationship, you'll still probably will get hooked in the beginning because Mr. or Mrs. Charming is going to charm you and get into your good books. But the difference is, as you start to, when they start to turn, and when they start to devalue you, when they start to criticize you and turn on you, if you understand these 9 criteria, you'll start to see it. You'll start to say, hang on, I'm being gaslighted here.
Yeah.
I'm being used, I'm being abused. And healthy people get out at that point.
Yeah.
If you have been conditioned, as I was, you will do what I did all my life. You will try to fix it. You will try to turn it around. You'll try to turn it into, you'll be because don't forget you're dealing with a Jekyll and Hyde personality. You love the Dr. Jekyll side. You hate the Mr. Hyde part. So you're constantly trying to find Dr. Jekyll, the nice side.
Yeah.
Because you've seen that side and you know there is that side and you want that side back.
Yeah.
But healthy people will get out sooner.
Okay. So depending on where you are in this process, I would say to people to find out more about narcissistic behaviour. That way you can protect yourself, you can protect others around you by sharing the information, so that people don't end up. One question, does a narcissist really love you? A lot of partners will stay with people because they think that they love them. Are they capable of loving?
They need you as they need supply. They need you. They lack empathy. They're not able to love. They love in their way, but they're not loving in a way that's reciprocating what you're giving.
So they see you as replaceable.
Yeah. So if you're not getting what you're giving, it's not being reciprocated.
Yeah.
And like the myth of narcissists who fell in love with their own reflection. Every time they tried to move away from the pool, they lost sight of their own reflection. And that was what they were in love with. Yeah. And so the thing is that just educate yourselves.
Okay.
Go onto my website. If you want to know what kind of a narcissist you're with, you can certainly read my book, or you can download a free chapter on my book from my website. Okay,
so your book is called The 3 Faces of Evil, Unmasking the Full Spectrum of Narcissistic Abuse.
Yes.
Now, you have a website. It's a great website and will give lots of information to listeners out there. It's www.narcissisticbehaviour.net.
That's correct.
And you can be reached from that website.
I can be reached from that website.
But there's also a huge amount of information for listeners, for therapists, for a lot of people that want to know more about narcissistic
and what I've also
behaviour.
done is I've recorded 3 of my workshops, and they're on my 2 are up on my website already, and the 3rd one on narcissistic mothers will go up shortly. And so for both therapists and victims alike, if you can't get to workshops, anybody's workshops, they're there.
Okay.
And you can
that's
download
absolutely
them
brilliant.
from the website.
Okay, thank you so much, Christine Louis de Canonville,
Thank you so much
for coming in. It was a pleasure to talk about you and very insightful. I hope people will go to your website and find out more about narcissism. Thanks so much to Brian. We're running out of time right now. Thanks a million to Brian for sound. Thank you to listeners, and I will talk to you next week. Have a great week. Bye.